This is Brigadier Hemant Mahajan. We are going to carry out a security scan for the week ending 30th July. Last scan, which we did last Saturday, had a tremendous response. What we are going to discuss today are the important events that took place at the world stage and in our national life, which has an impact on India's national security. One would remember that in earlier days, we used to fight conventional wars like the wars fought in 1947, 62, 65, 1971, or the Kargil War. These lasted from 3 weeks to 5 weeks to 6 weeks. But after that, there was nothing that was happening in the remainder year. However, the war which China and Pakistan is fighting with India today is called as the hybrid war, or called as the gray zone warfare, or called as the unrestricted warfare, or also called as multi-domain warfare, which keeps on going on throughout the year. China keeps on carrying out various movements, and we have to respond to it adequately because it's a multi-domain war which goes on for 24 hours a day and 365 days a year. So, in this particular broadcast, we will find out as to what important activities that took place and how did India respond to these activities. What we will start today is how India is stopping Chinese subversion of the Indian economy. Uh, any of you who's reading newspapers would remember that Chinese phone makers like the Xiaomi, the Oppo, OnePlus, Vivo are under the scanner of our economic intelligence agencies because they have done a fair amount of money laundering. The figures quoted are 7.9 billions or 624 crores, etc. The amount actually is more than 50% of the complete sale revenue of the companies here since 2014. By taking the money out, sending it to China, what have the companies achieved? The companies have achieved avoiding paying of taxes. This is basically a subversion of Indian economy, producing in India, selling in India, but profits not been given to India and not paying any taxes on it. So what was done was the investigative agencies in India raided 48 locations and seized 119 bank accounts which had a bank balance of nearly $4.6 billion, gold bars, etc. The investigative agencies also found out that in Simla they were actually functioning from a government building. And this is not the first case of tax evasion. They have done it before also. Xiaomi's done it, Oppo's done it, OnePlus has done it. So therefore, now they have been caught. Secondly, Chinese have been carrying out what is called as the predatory investment. That means investing money into those companies which are technologically very powerful company, thereby stealing our data. Now you start with, but India is responding to it by producing these items under what is called as PLI, that is production linked incentive schemes, in which we are manufacturing important components in the country itself. One would remember that initially API, which is a let's say a raw material required to make drugs, used to come from China, 90% of it. Now it has been reduced to less than 20%. There are many other companies except the Chinese phone makers who are now manufacturing in India. So therefore, what is the analysis? India is fighting back. The days of Chinese getting a free pass in India are over, and India is up in the ante against China, and the pushback is only getting stronger. Be it company practices of Hawaii, data security, dependence on critical material, supply chain diversification, etc. So we are fighting back to stop the Chinese subversion. The second issue is the bilateral commerce between the two companies. The trade gap between Indian imports and Chinese exports is increasing quite a lot. And now in 21-22, it is shot up to $72 billion. I repeat the figures again, $72 billion. The government of India is making an all-out effort to ensure that there is a parity between imports and exports. But the Chinese are crooked. They put in all kinds of obstacles in between. They keep on sending stuff to us, and our corporate world keeps on buying it from them. Our traders keeps on buying cheap Chinese goods, thereby increasing the deficit. We have to go all out to ensure that unessential imports from China are reduced because it is putting pressure on our foreign currency. The second point that I'm going to talk about is Khalistani extremism, which is there in Europe, Canada, and USA. Recently, National Security Advisor Shri Ajit Doval met his United Kingdom counterpart Stephen Lovegrove on 21st of July and told him to control these radical groups which are acting against India. What we have to understand is that the Khalistani extremism and terrorism is being nurtured in Europe, in Canada, and in USA by few radicals. We have to use our diplomatic power to neutralize these anti-Indian activities which are taking place in the country. Next issue is about job security. The Ministry of Home Affairs has decided that 84,000 plus vacancies of Central Armed Police Forces will be filled up by the year 2023. This is a good announcement, and the youth will get those many jobs. So therefore, the youth must start preparing for it. Also, there was a news that 10% of reservation has been given to the Agniveers in the recruitment to the post of constables, etc., in the Central Armed Police Forces. But this is in addition to the 50% that has already been given. So therefore, it's a good opportunity as far as youth of India is concerned. The next point that I'm going to talk about is that Prime Minister recently spoke about Har Ghar Mein Tiranga. I repeat, Har Ghar Mein Tiranga. What he means is 15th of August is coming nearby, 75 years of India's freedom. So therefore, he said every house must fly a Tiranga. It is definitely a very good initiative because it will ignite the dormant spirit of patriotism in an average Indian citizen. However, there are two important points. Firstly, the nation must be told as to what is the correct way of hoisting a national flag, be it at public place, be it on the top of a building, be it in flats in multi-story building, be it on a vehicle, or be it at other places. Otherwise, some people unknowingly may put the flag flying at half mast or broken, etc. And also equally important is after 15th of August is over, how will you dispose of the flag? Most people will dispose it off correctly, but some unwittingly, unknowingly may just throw it off, and then the media will go crazy by showing photographs of national flag which are lying in the dustbin. So media should be warned. Should somebody make a mistake inadvertently of hoisting a national flag wrongly or disposing it of wrongly, that should not be given importance. But what is more important is that we are trying to ignite the national spirit in the heart of every Indian citizen so that he does what the President of India, Srimati Draupadi Murmu, said few days back. She said, हर एक का कर्तव्य हर एक की जवाबदारी यानी कि every Indian citizen has to work for the good of the country instead of asking what country can do for me. You should do your kartavya, that is your duty. The next point that I'm going to talk about is the information war which goes on perpetually in the various media, etc. Now government has taken a decision that there are intermediaries like Facebook, Twitter, etc. They will be held accountable for fake news. I repeat, for example, a fake news can come on Facebook, it can come on Twitter, and it raises unnecessary tensions in the society. So, what is important is this fake news must be curbed. Today, if you look at the print media, it is quite responsible. Electronic media also is liable to punishment should they do something which is against the law. So they are also fairly responsible. But the social media is not, especially Twitter, Facebook, etc. So it is important to make it very clear to the technology giants like Google or Facebook or Twitter that they are not an independent entity. If they want to function in India, they will follow Indian laws. And as far as India is concerned, India's national security is of prime importance, and these platforms will work under the Indian laws and not compromise India's national security in any manner. In fact, Twitter these days is acting a bit funny. They should be told that should you create a problem for us, we will make you quit India. The next point is with regard to India's external security. Now, there's been a tremendous improvement as far as the infrastructure is concerned on the LOC with Pakistan, with the LAC, with respect to LAC on China, and on the international border with respect to either Myanmar or Pakistan. Government has spent a fair amount of money. 2088 kilometers of road constructed near the area bordering China. Money spent 15,000 crores plus. We have spent another 20,000 in constructing 3,600 kilometers of road along the borders with Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar. So we have been spending a good amount of money in improving infrastructure. It helps the security forces. This improves their efficiency. It improves our surveillance on the international border or on the LAC. But what is important is when you spend so much of money on infrastructure, it must be used properly. Of course, the armed forces will use it. There is no doubt. But all these locations which are located on the border should be opened up for tourism so that people living on the borders will benefit because of the tourism industry. And one such very positive example is Ladakh. One would remember that complete Ladakh has been opened up for tourism by Government of India, and the response of Indians has been tremendous. 3 to 4 lakh Indians have visited Ladakh and have done adventure tourism in various areas. So this has given a boost to the local economy. That is one aspect, but also equally important is that this is ensured that in our area, people settle down along the borders, people go up to the borders so that we are able to keep a tag of what is happening on our borders. So by opening up tourists, by opening up people of India to come there, we improve also surveillance on the border, which is very important because some of the areas are highly remote. Now, next issue that I'm going to talk about is Make in India, which is progressing quite rapidly. Recently, Defense Minister, who heads the Defense Acquisition Council, has said that we are going to give contracts worth 28,732 crores to the Indian companies. This, of course, there'll be stringent requirement. The content will completely be Indians, and today the competition in the private sector is increasing drastically. Some important brand names like Adani Defense, Kalyani, Bharat Forge, etc., are going to be the major bidders as far as carbine contracts are concerned. We have given them contracts of manufacturing small arms, swarm drones, etc. So this is a very good thing. Make in India is definitely increasing. Recently, the Indian Navy was handed over indigenously built aircraft carrier from the Cochin shipyard, which has been commissioned as INS Vikrant. In addition, our submarine fleet is also improving its fighting capability. And what is important is that we are using artificial intelligence in a big way to improve our, let's say, surveillance abilities, fighting abilities, etc. The armed forces are integrating AI into various systems, into various weapon systems, into command and control, etc., advanced algorithms, so as to ensure that our fighting efficiency is of a very high class order and we are able to beat our enemies, China and Pakistan. Now, next aspect is certain strategic aspects which we have to keep a tag of. India and US leadership is deepening. There are a lot of areas in which we are cooperating. There are a lot of defense related joint initiatives that are coming up, and USA has granted India what is called as Strategic Trade Authorization Tier 1 status, which means we can acquire a number of military technologies which are also dual use technologies. It's a win-win situation for us, and because USA today is a technological superpower, so we must get as much technology as possible and must keep on updating are all systems. Second issue that I want to talk about is that today Dalai Lama is stays in India. There's a Tibetan government in exile, which is in India, and there's a large amount of diaspora of Tibetans who are there in India. If I remember the figures correctly, it is almost between 1.5 lakhs to 2 lakhs. We must use these assets for in a useful manner against China. Uh, China lot of times keeps on troubling us by raising Kashmir issue to help Pakistan. If they use Kashmir issue, why can't we talk about human rights violation which are taking place in Tibet? Why can't we talk about environmental damage which China is causing in Tibet? Why can't we talk about how China is not letting the religious practices being followed, not letting the Tibetans to follow religious practices that they want to follow? Why can't we raise the issue that complete Tibet is under surveillance? The human rights of the Tibetans must be brought on regularly so that their quality of life improves. Because after all, Dalai Lama is now in Ladakh. He said that what they want is a spiritual freedom. But even that, the Chinese are not willing to give. The next issue is about Pakistan. Is Pakistan a failed state? Does Pakistan have the capability to secure China-Pakistan economic corridor? Why this question? Because recently there was a news in which it said that China is pressurizing Pakistan to allow Chinese private security personnel to guard projects and Chinese nationals in Pakistan. Obviously, Pakistan has said no because it is against their sovereignty. However, China will keep on putting pressure because the Baluchis are carrying out number of attacks. Recently, one would remember that an army officer of the Pakistani army was kidnapped and killed, and to take a revenge of that, Pakistanis just picked up Pakistani army that is picked up 9 Baluchis and they killed them in the cold blood. They had nothing to do with violence in Balochistan. They were normal people who had been picked up by the Pakistani army from various places and killed in cold blood. In fact, all the Baluchi parties, all the Baluchi press, all the Baluchi intellectuals, everybody from Balochistan is now asking the Pakistani Prime Minister to have a complete investigation of it and find out as to who were responsible for killing them in cold blood. So therefore, Pakistan is creating a problem for the Baluchis. It is killing its own countrymen. It is using army in a very, very violent manner. Now, not only that, Pakistan's economy is in a complete downturn. There's a report as late as today morning that Pakistan may become next Sri Lanka because they simply do not have a capacity to pay for the things that they import, especially the energy. So therefore, level of violence in Pakistan in near Afghanistan border is increasing. In Balochistan, it is increasing. In Sindh, it is increasing. The economy is failing, and most probably Pakistan will go the Sri Lankan way. Now, what is important for us is to keep a watchful eye on developments that take place in Pakistan to ensure that our borders remain free of violence. So the next issue that I'm going to talk about is the Chinese hybrid war on the world. China is carrying out a hybrid war or a multi-domain war against India, but it is doing it against many Western countries and also USA. Now, I'll just give you two examples which came up in this particular week. One is the hybrid war against Taiwan. One would know from the news that every day the Chinese Air Force is violating the boundaries of Taiwan and going into their space. The moment they go inside the Taiwan airspace, the Taiwanese fighter jet aircraft take up and then the Chinese go away. Something similar China is doing in our area of Ladakh. Recently, there was a news that Mrs. Pelosi, who is the Speaker of United States House of Representatives, is planning a visit to Taiwan. But China has warned that should she come there, then USA will face very grave consequences. And no less a person than Chairman of Joint Chief of Staff Mark Milley told the told the Australian media that China is close to having military capabilities to invade Taiwan. I repeat, China is has military capabilities to invade Taiwan. How would they invade Taiwan? Taiwan is an island, so they will invade Thailand by carrying out an amphibious landing. They will invade Taiwan by airdropping troops on Taiwan. They will invade Taiwan by blocking Taiwan from all directions. So these military capabilities they have. So therefore, Taiwan's defenses have to be made stronger. Defense to Taiwan, the threat to Taiwan is increasing day by day. When will the Chinese attack? Only the Chinese can tell, but the threat is really serious. Now, similarly, the Chinese are carrying out hybrid war against complete Europe. Now, United Kingdom or England, Mr. Rishi Sunak is the leading candidate for the ongoing race to become a next prime minister. He said that the Chinese Communist Party represents the largest threat to British and the world security. I repeat, Mr. Rishi Sunak says that the Chinese Communist Party represents largest threat to British and the world's security. Liz Truss, she is another front runner as far as the United Kingdom is concerned, and she said that she will increase the Commonwealth trade deals to curb China's malign influence. What is it? Malign influence. She, in fact, is a hardliner as far as China is concerned. She wants to boost trade with Commonwealth nation and stop buying anything which comes from China because China is one of the most malign influences in the recent times. So therefore, Europe is worried, America is worried about the hybrid war that has been launched by the Chinese. We also face a similar problem. So it's a tremendous opportunity for us to make alliances and fight China unitedly with regard to the information war, with regard to the psychological war, with regard to, let us say, propaganda war, etc. Because China's hybrid war continues against the world continuously. The next and the last point that I'm going to talk about is the Russia-Ukraine war. I just want to make two, 3 points. If you have been reading the news, there are very heavy artillery duels that are going on between Ukraine and Russia. And the losses on both the sides are very, very heavy. I'll not talk about it. But who's benefited because of this war? The military industrial complex who have already got orders worth 19 or 20 billion dollars. Now Russia has also cut off its gas to the European Union. Now it will be reduced to 20% of the capacity. So that creates a very serious problem as far as energy security of Europe is concerned because they have to find the alternate source. Alternate sources are available, but it's not easy. However, when we look at India, we have been able to manage the fallouts between Russia and Ukraine war far better than most of the world. We have been able to get cheap crude from Russia at concessional prices. The difference is almost 30% less. So this has helped us to manage our energy security simply because 85% of our energy requirement comes from outside and the Russians have contributed quite a lot in last 4 or 5 months. Also, there was one very good news which came in the news today that after nearly 6 months of gap, Ukraine is going to give us 50,000 tons of sunflower oil. I repeat, 50,000 tons of sunflower oil. So this will ensure that our food security is taken care of and the prices which are increasing in our country with regard to cooking oil will definitely reduce. In the conclusion, all that I will say is we had 26th July, which is a Kargil anniversary, also called as Operation Vijay, which took place. Kargil war was replete with heroic acts by young officers and soldiers of Indian Army, and we were able to counter the Pakistanis. All the soldiers who fought there had barely 2 or 3 years of service. Some people were complaining that with Agniveer, with young soldiers, would we be able to fight war or not? Kargil war is a great example of what young people can do. Rifleman Sanjay Kumar was barely 20 years of age. Captain Vikram Batra was 21. Lieutenant Vijayan Thapar was 22 or 23. All of them had less than 3 years or 4 years of service. They had recently been commissioned either from IMA or had been recently been recruited. But they fought well, and Kargil is a very famous victory. So I'm sure something similar will happen to the Agniveers should the war with China or Pakistan become a reality. But now the threat is very less of Kargil war or Kargil type of a war. Now the threat from China is of a hybrid war or a multi-domain war which is going on in a 365 days in a year. And that is what we learn to now counter. We have to ensure that our security agencies or security forces are able to carry out also offensive action against China and Pakistan and not only defensive actions. Because threat today is hybrid war, threat today is unrestricted war, threat today is, let us say, gray zone warfare, threat today is multi-domain warfare, physical war or wars that we fought in the past are not going to come up in a hurry these days. So therefore, we have to be ready 365 days in a year to fight various types of hybrid war. I'll stop here. If you like the video, like it and share it with as many people as possible. I'll stop. Jai Hind.